If you order packages from Amazon, doesn't matter what packages, you get them in the mail and it says on the packaging that it's recyclable if you drop it off at a specific retailer. You're going to want to know about this because apparently Amazon is lying to you and not all of that recycling goes into recycling. Surprise, surprise, recycling is becoming more and more of a fraud every time we look into it. So we're going to talk about that on today's episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. Let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin, and this is the podcast where you find out what's happening with the ocean, how you can speak up for the ocean, what you can do to live for a better ocean by taking action. Now, today's episode, we're going to be diving into plastic. We know ocean plastic is a problem. Ocean plastic pollution is a huge problem in the ocean. It gets pummeled in there every day, billions and billions of pieces of plastic. It's like a soup in the ocean right now. You know, you've probably heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. You've probably heard of other gyre systems having plastic. You've probably heard of at the end of river mouths, there's lots of plastic. People are trying to clean it up, some more successful than others. I'm not going to go into that right now, but people are trying to clean it up. And, you know, retailers are trying to say, hey, you know what? We need to do better and we need to make better steps forward for recycling. But what we've noticed is that there's a lot of greenwashing that goes along with that. And to be honest, it's lying. It's straight up lying. We call it greenwashing to make it sound less bad, but it's pretty bad. You know, when a package comes to you, you order that package, and it says, hey, it's recyclable. The packaging is recyclable. You want to put it in either your recycling bin or follow the instructions and be able to say, hey, you know what? We're going to do this. But a lot of times it doesn't make it to where the recycling plants need to go or where the recycling needs to go to those plants. And it just doesn't get to where it's going to go. And that is a big problem when we're talking about people who are trying to do better for the environment. You and I, the people who are listening to this podcast, myself, we try and put the effort forward to say, hey, can we do a better job at putting together, a plan where we can use sustainable products, we can order sustainably, we can do better. We can order more sustainable clothing. We can order more sustainable like toothbrushes, like bamboo toothbrushes instead of the plastic toothbrushes, and so forth and so forth. We try and do that. And Amazon is a great place to be able to do that. It has a variety of products at good prices, right? And you're at a variety of prices, but really good prices in some cases. And it's nice. Things are expensive. It's nice to be able to buy things that are less expensive and be able to put that forward, and especially if they're sustainable as well. But when you order something, it has its own packaging, right? It'll have its own, marketing packaging that the brand that you buy from will put in. But then Amazon has its own packaging. A lot of times it comes in a cardboard box, which can be recycled for the most part. It has tape and it has little strings that they put in the tape, so it's really hard to open the box, right? There's preventions there so it doesn't get stolen easily. But it's a box. But in that box is sometimes those I don't know what they call them, but they're like puffed up sort of plastic. Has air in them. Right? They're like not balls, but they're like kind of like these little air pockets, right? They almost look like a piece of pasta, with air in it. I guess I'm still talking about Italy. But anyway, they still have them in there. And it's to prevent the product from bumbling around because the box is too big. They only have certain size boxes. That's supposed to get recycled. Doesn't always get recycled. Then if you don't have a box, you have this envelope, essentially, it's like bubble wrap. It has its own plastic around it. And on that plastic, and I've never seen it in Canada, but it looks like it's in the States. And it may be in Canada, but I haven't read it. But there's a plastic, or there's a label on the plastic that says on this envelope, and it basically says that it's recyclable. You could actually recycle it. And so it has like a website, it's How to Recycle. It's an initiative called How to Recycle. And they began selling them to big companies in 2012, supposedly to clear up confusion among consumers and retailers about which products could be recycled. So the initiative issues several versions of the recycling icon, with one marked store drop-off, preserved for products like plastic bags and film that aren't accepted in curbside recycling programs. So every time, every region, every county, every municipality, wherever you are in the world, if you have a recycling program, every little region or county has its own recycling needs or what it could take. Certain things aren't good for the machines that they have or the facilities that they have, while others are. And so you have to check with your region or county to find out what can go in your blue box or in your bin, your recycling bin, and what can't, right? So some of them that aren't able to do it, you can drop them off at specific stores, at retailers. So in the States, it's like Target, Whole Foods, and a bunch of others, which is great, right? You can drop them off. The problem is the article that I got out of the Grist, they did their own sort of study to find out where these things would go. So they put air tags in a number of them, and they found out only some made it, like 4 of them made it to the actual recycling plant. Others looked like they went overseas, or they were going to like major ports to go overseas, where they would go to like places like Malaysia or Indonesia or other small island states that didn't have the recycling facilities to recycle that product, right? That actual wrapper or envelope, plastic envelope, right? Or go to go to an incinerator, a facility with an incinerator, or go to in the hands of a company that downcycles the plastic film into making things like benches and stuff like that, which isn't terrible because they're making products out of it, but it's still out of plastic. So it's not the best, but at least you're doing something with the plastic. I think I want to reiterate here something, because when we talk about using things, sometimes we cannot avoid using them, right? Sometimes we cannot avoid using certain things where we make a mistake or we didn't know something and we get plastic. If it's able to be downcycled into like something like a bench, it's okay, because at least you're reusing it. You have to look at what you can do with it other than burn it or put it into a landfill, right? Or put it to an export terminal that'll go to a different landfill in another country, right? So you want to do what you can with it. If you can reuse it, right? If you can downcycle it or put it to a facility or a company that downcycle it. At least do something with the product and not send it back where it eventually just goes into the landfill or goes into an incinerator and gets burned, which is even worse, right? So there's things that you can do. We live in a society where plastic dominates. It's cheaper to make, it's cheaper to ship, and so a lot of companies use it. Most companies use it. We all use it, and whatever we have, there's probably some plastic in it, including our food, which is not good, but including our food. But this just goes to show that, and this is not the only study. Other journals did the same thing. Not journals, but like other like journalists and journey facilities did the same thing. But this was done by companies, environmental organizations. There were 2 environmental organizations that were doing it. I'm looking for it. They were called Environment America and the U.S. Public Interest Research Group, or U.S. PIRG, I think it's called, or PIRG. And it suggests that only a small fraction of Amazon's plastic packaging makes it to the material recovery facility, the term for operations that store glass, metal, plastic, and other items for recycling. So they're not the only ones that did it. Other organizations did it. Other journalistic organizations did it, and had pretty much the same sort of thing. Right? It's pretty much the same results. A very small portion made it to the recycling facility, and then some of them made it to the incinerator, some of them made it to export facilities or terminals, and others made it to companies that sort of downcycled. But essentially what they're saying here is all the claims that companies are making are just greenwashing, right? This was said by, I forget who it was said by. Somebody for one of those organizations, U.S. PIRG or Environment or America. But it's true, right? They say this, oh, don't worry, it actually gets recycled, but it doesn't get recycled, and that's the big problem. It doesn't get recycled, right? It's just not good. Like Jane Dell, an independent chemical engineer and founder of the environmental nonprofit The Last Beach Cleanup, has been deploying her own trackers. She has her own trackers where she's deploying them. Since December 2022, she hasn't traced a single bundle of film labeled for store drop-off to U.S. facilities that can turn into material into new bags. 12 bundles have been sent to the landfill or waste station, and 1 to an incinerator. 4 appear to travel to Mexico, Vietnam, or Malaysia, countries that generally lack adequate recycling infrastructure. So they're absolutely aligned to these labels. This is what Jan Dell says. This drop-off system has never worked, and it was never true. So a lot of these companies now are getting rid of this how to recycle labeling because I think people have realized that it's just not working, right? And so we are seeing Amazon has done its part or has done some things to control packaging, but they've also said, Pat Linder from Amazon Vice President of Mechatronics and Sustainable Packaging told Grits that the company has no control over how its packaging is handled once it has been disposed of by municipalities or recycling centers. Right? It says it goes on to say a spokesperson said that the company is investing in better recycling infrastructure while also reducing plastic use overall. As of last year, for example, Amazon has eliminated plastic from shipments delivered in Europe, likely in response to EU regulations banning several categories of single-use plastic. They did the same thing in India because India has eliminated packaging as well. They're going to ban it. They banned it nationwide, single-use plastic, by 2022. So the fact is Amazon will do stuff, will actually do something about reducing plastic when the law says to do something to reduce plastic because they have to sell to these areas. So imagine if the U.S. came out and said, we're going to do a ban on single-use plastic. Amazon has to abide by that to be able to sell into these areas and deliver packages into the U.S. and into Canada. If they're doing it in Canada, Canada would have to have its own law, which it does. And actually, Canada is interesting. It's on its way to create sort of a database of companies that ship or use plastic materials to its consumers, and they're going to track where that goes. So they're going to do their own tracking because this sort of lack of responsibility when it comes to actually, saying, hey, we have no control where our packaging goes after it's been shipped off by the municipalities or recycling facilities. Well, maybe they should. Maybe they should track it in some sort of ways. How that will look, I have no idea. But maybe they should start tracking it, right? Maybe they should be responsible for disposing it or the lack of disposal. If you make a product that says it's recycling and it's not really recycled most of the time, maybe you should be accountable for that. That's lying, right? You could say, hey, we're going to do our best to recycle it. And so if you return it to maybe an Amazon shipping facility, which we usually have some all around, or maybe send it back, I don't know. I don't know what would be the best way to do it. But there's got to be a way to recycle these packages better or reuse these packages better. Right? Maybe a reward system, an incentive system for people who are ordering on Amazon. I don't know. But there's got to be a way to be able to put this together. We get hundreds of millions of pounds of single-use plastic trash every year. Right? That's Amazon. Hundreds of millions of pounds. Right? So it's got to be doing more, and it says it's going to be doing more. In California, where state legislation often sets national standard, a truth in law advertising signed by the governor in 2021 may soon restrict the use of store drop-off labels unless companies can prove that the system is effective. A separate law will require single-use plastic packaging sold in the state to be demonstrably recycled at least 65% of the time by 2032, a threshold that may push manufacturers toward paper, which is far easier to recycle. So it has to be done at the government level because Amazon's not going to do it on their own. And it just goes to show that they'll find any excuse so that they don't have to do it on their own. Look, this is not a slight against Amazon. I'd like companies to be able, they're just the biggest company, right, that deals with plastic and packaging. But I would like these companies, they're making billions and billions and billions and trillions of dollars. I would like them to start being accountable for the crap that they put into our environment. Right? Just because it's cheaper to ship, I get, but make it better. Let's strive for better. Let's strive for companies and reward companies who do better. Now, I know it's hard to avoid Amazon. I order from Amazon. My wife orders from Amazon. We do order from Amazon. And we see this packaging each and every time it comes to our door. So we got to make sure our companies do better on this. And maybe it's time that we don't order from Amazon as much. I guess that's really what it comes down to, right? So how much are you willing to go? Do you order from Amazon or do you not because of environmental worries? I would love to hear your thoughts. Hit me up on Instagram at How to Protect the Ocean. That's at How to Protect the Ocean. I don't know where you live. I know I went to Italy. I still saw Amazon packages being delivered. I think they deliver all around the world. This company's become absolutely mega huge, and we need to make sure that it's following the laws and following, the ethics of taking care of the ocean and taking care of the planet by producing less plastic and using less plastic. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Is it unavoidable? Can we avoid this situation? Can Amazon do better? Love to hear from you. Hit me up on Instagram at How to Protect the Ocean. You can also email me if you go to speakupforblue.com/contact and look at. I want to talk to you. I want to hear if you're a listener. You've been a listener for a few weeks, a few months, a few years. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to have a 15-minute chat just to kind of say, hey, what do you think of the episodes? What would you like to hear? Who you are, get to know you a little bit. I want to get to know my audience. I want to be able to chat with them. It'll take up very little time. You'll fill out a form. It'll be fun, I promise you, and we'll get to chat about podcasting and the ocean in general. But so hit me up on one of those, Instagram or speakupforblue.com/contact. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.